Joining me now to give an update on our local NBA and NFL teams is the New York Giants pregame and postgame host, John Schmeelk. John, what an interesting couple of weeks it's been since we last spoke. How are you, my friend?
Mike, doing all right. Enjoyed a bye week without any Giants football, but I got a chance to sit down and watch the rest of the league, which was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. So let's start with the NBA. The Knicks and Nets played each other twice over the weekend, once on Friday, once on Sunday. Now, it's interesting because historically the Knicks and Nets are pretty equal in relationship to each other. Entering Friday night, they were actually 107 and 107 against each other all time. The first game was also close. Knicks only won by 2 points. Last night's game, they won by 10. What were your takeaways from those two matchups?
Yeah, and look, and in that first game on Friday night, the Knicks took a gigantic lead, and it looked like they were going to run away with the game. The Nets put a furious run together, and then Jalen Brunson hits a big three. Mikal Bridges blocks a shot by Dennis Schroeder going to the basket, and the Knicks pull out a game that they thought would be a win they could cruise to and be an easy one, but it ended up being a tight one, and I think that built a little bit of character for the Knicks, a team that has had some trouble winning close games at the end of games this year. That's something that this team under Tom Thibodeau has been pretty good at the last year or two. But there's a lot of new players, right? Karl Anthony Towns is here. He did not play in Friday's game. He did play yesterday. You know, Mikal Bridges, some new guys that are making up this rotation. So I think they're trying to figure out still how to work together and play together. And they're trying to figure out kind of that grit it takes to win some of these close games. So I do think that game on Friday and the way they finished it, despite blowing that lead, was a good sign that maybe they're starting to figure out how to win some of these close games. And then, you know, it's always tough to beat a team when you play them back-to-back like that on a Friday and Sunday. It's like winning a doubleheader in baseball. It's just hard to win both ends of that. And the Knicks came out. Karl Anthony Towns was great again. And the Knicks won that game without Jalen Brunson doing much at all. He was 3 of 14, scored just 12 points. But Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns all played well, made up for their captain not putting up his usual spectacular performance. And I think the Knicks are slowly rounding into form here. They still need to figure out their defense. It's not quite where you need it to be, but their offense is one of the better ones in the league. And I think when all is said and done, give them another few weeks, they should look pretty good in terms of being a competitor in the Eastern Conference.
Now let's talk about Jordi Fernandez in his first year as head coach of the Nets. How would you rate the job he's done over the first 14 games of the season?
I think he's done a great job. You know, you talked to Net fans before the year, and you know, they're talking about how many ping pong balls they're going to have in the draft lottery in the spring. And they were kind of throwing the season away. You know, they trade Mikal Bridges. And you look at the talent on the roster, they don't have a star player, right? And I think Net fans were more concerned about trying to get Cooper Flagg in the NBA draft than winning games. But, you know, Fernandez has done a good job of getting this team to play hard. They have their one young scorer that's put up a lot of points. They have guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, Schroeder, guys like that, Cam Johnson, that are able to play around that one star that, again, is averaging well over 20 points a game. So I think he's done a good job putting a team together. They're playing hard. They're working hard on defense. And I think they're overachieving based on what expectations have been so far this year.
Well, let's move over to the NFL and talk about our dreaded New York teams. The Giants had one of their toughest losses in recent memory back on November 10th when they fell to the Carolina Panthers in overtime during the Munich game. They didn't play this weekend. Week 11 was their bye week. Any level-headed football fan knows their season is not salvageable at this point, but how important was it for the Giants to have this bye week happen when it did and give them a chance to fly home and recuperate from that tough loss?
Yeah, look, they needed it. And the Giants, unlike when they made the playoffs a couple years ago, won that playoff game of the Vikings in 2022, they've kind of been in the figure out a way to lose games type of mode, whether it's, you know, turnovers in the red zone, not scoring in the red zone, not taking the ball away, missed field goals, mistakes, failed two-point conversions, bad penalties. You name it. They've figured out new ways every week to make mistakes in critical spots to lose football games. So I think it's good to get away a little bit. You know, we'll talk about the quarterback thing in a second. But, you know, kind of get in a better mindset so when you get into these close games at the end, it's not here we go again. It's, all right, we're going to figure out a way to win this game, which is something they have not been able to do for much of this year. You know, you look at a lot of the advanced metrics, Mike, the Giants are much more similar to teams with 4 wins than they are to teams with 2. But again, they've just been very poor in late games tight. They're 1-5 in one-score games this year, and they need to figure out a way to turn that around. And maybe they can do it with Tommy Cutlets at quarterback.
Yeah, the record is what matters, not the metrics, unfortunately. Now, the Jets gave fans some false hope yesterday against the Indianapolis Colts. They came back from 13-0 to make it 24-16, a two-score lead, and then they lose 28-27. This reminded me of their game a little bit against the Patriots a few weeks back when they came from behind just to lose at the end of the fourth quarter. Do you consider this a well-played game by the Jets because it was so close, or was it a failure because they let it slip away?
Yeah, look, I think any style points and consolation prizes are of little interest to Jet fans at this point in their season, right? They went all in on Aaron Rodgers. They trade for Devontae Adams. They had, they bring in Tyron Smith. They bring in Morgan Moses. They have all these older veteran players that they tried to make a run with this year, and their season's over by Thanksgiving. And it's a huge disappointment. Look, we've seen other teams recover from this in terms of their long-term viability. The Broncos, they tried to do the similar thing with Russell Wilson a couple of years ago, right? It didn't work out. They moved on, and all of a sudden it looks like they have a chance to make the playoffs in the AFC. So if I'm a Jet fan, I think there are ways to work around this if you can figure out your quarterback position. But as of now, this season and the way it was planned and the way they were going to go about things just hasn't worked out, and they're going to have to figure out a different path here because I think it's going to be tough with the salary cap and figuring out his salary and working that out over the next couple of years with all the money they push back in that contract. But I would be very surprised if Aaron Rodgers is back next season.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And John, last question. You touched on this earlier. News broke this morning that Daniel Jones will be benched the rest of the season in favor of our old Jersey pal Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets. I can't say I blame the Giants because nothing seems to be working at this point. Will DeVito's presence at least reinvigorate the fans, if not win games?
Yeah, look, the Giants were scoring the fewest points in the NFL in terms of points per game. So this was a bye week. You have a full week of practice. Now you get an extra practice in this week because of the bye to slide a new quarterback in. So I think the timing made sense. If you weren't going to do it this week, you would have to wait until after Thanksgiving to do it. So I think it made sense to make the move. We're going to hear from Brian Dable a little bit later on today. They'll give their reasoning as to why they're doing it. But a lot of the reporting indicates that it has a lot to do with the fact that Drew Lock was hurt in the summer, didn't have a chance to play a lot in the preseason. So he has a much better feel for how Tommy DeVito is going to run this offense, how he's going to run the team. They did win 3 straight games with Tommy DeVito quarterback last year. And if you can give him some support, the defense can take the ball away a little bit. They haven't done enough of that this year. And you can make a couple of big plays through the air. Maybe this is something that can, give you a little bit of a spark. But you're right. I think, the fans were just tired of heading out to MetLife Stadium every week and seeing the same thing and the same failures. And I think they'll be excited to see somebody else behind center. And they love Tommy DeVito. Jersey Italians love their Jersey Italians, Mike. And they'll be excited to see him behind center.
DeVito Mania Part 2. John, hopefully the two teams can somehow finish strong over the next few weeks. Thanks as always, my friend, for taking the time.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Head over to ONNJ.com for the latest news and sports anytime.